What's up, guys? Welcome to my neck of the wood, Go Michigan. Love rain. Isn't rain nice? Love rain. Oh my god, it's too early for this crazy of a fade, but I respect it. Give people some time to get in here. Consider going to this one. Honestly, I should be on the way there, but the weather was just enough to keep me from really going out there. I mean, it would end at like what 8:20, no matter what. I'd probably be able to get the kids back in time and whatnot, but uh, little ones with rain out there at a track that honestly wasn't that impressive at all for me to go to when I went to it last time. It's like an hour and a half away. I'll just watch this one from the comfort of my own home, as I usually do here. So, FireKeepers Casino 400. Go there, place a bet on someone, I guess. So, I'm gonna start this pot out maybe a little differently. Man, yeah, we I called the Logano my pick to win last week. Had people tailing, had some really nice some nice big numbers about to get paid out to us, and then yeah, that happened. Who shall not be named did something that I would probably admire from other drivers. Like if Ross Chastain did that, I think it would be hilarious. I think we would have all loved it. It's just, why did it have to be him to do what I do every other race when I'm playing a NASCAR video game? Either way, the rank sheet. I never planned on being a weatherman here, so yeah. I mean, practice was already fucked up because we had like people get 3 or 4 laps. Not even everyone got out on the track yesterday, and then it sprinkled. It was like a 10-minute hold or whatever, 10, 15, something like that. They got back out there. They ran some laps. But yeah, I'm lowering the importance of practice overall today. Then again, we don't have much to go off of. Usually qualifying here is pretty big, but with that not being a thing, with qualifying being canceled, actually changes the slate a lot. It's usually very important here. So we'll get into it here. So we're going to first look at props. Very important. Ford has won this race 9 straight times, and they're plus 275. Granted, a lot of those wins, like last year's, Truex should have won that race. He was probably the best car, but Buescher was able to hang on at the end, keep the streak alive. A lot of these wins are like Kevin Harvick, even going back to like Clint Boyer. Is this line still crazy though? Plus 275, they've won 9 straight times? I don't know. I don't like betting manufacturer props. I mean, it kind of is what it is. Toyota understandably is up there, even though Truex is starting back there. Like, you got Hamlin on the pole, you got Reddick on the front row, you got Bell right behind Hamlin. Like, it makes sense. And then Chevrolet hasn't looked as good recently, but it looks like they've got more speed than we've seen from them recently at the intermediate tracks outside of just Larson. I mean, Larson's up there, of course. He's pretty fast, but Chastain, on top of the amount of practice that they had, cool. But yeah, we got Joe Gibbs up top, of course. It's not like at the short tracks where they're like even to win with the rest of the field. There's a lot more parity here to be had, and we can see these numbers from these 3rd, 4th, 5th best teams looking a lot nicer. So there's going to be a little more parity this week. It's really kind of about the group of haves and have-nots. I think a lot of the haves are somewhat similar. I don't think guys like Hamlin and Larson have that big of an advantage here, but you've got Joe Gibbs up top, Hendrick at plus 250, 23XI, RFK, Penske, the tertiary type teams, Trackhouse plus 10,000. This is where it starts to get into the ridiculous range. Like Richard Childress, come on. It can't be 2 weeks in a row, right? Certainly. The cautions also very interesting here. 7.5 minus 115 each way. That's the exact same number as last week at Richmond. And yeah, you saw how much of a green flag race that was. Outside of some restarts here that could get a little crazy. We saw some crazy restarts in Xfinity, but Xfinity this year has been fucking awful. Outside of like some restarts getting wild and some wrecks, which usually are devastating wrecks, they'll put you in the hauler. This should be a green flag choo-choo train kind of race. It just kind of is what it is. The preferred lines on the outside, and usually after a restart, everyone gets settled and keeps going. But we did see a pass for the lead, like 12 laps to go, green flag last year. So it's not totally a snake race, but you will see them settle out a bit. So just looking at those props here, most important part. Also need to know how well my mic is doing because I turned on some noise cancellation here. I'm not sure if it's anywhere as good as Discord's, but whatever. Look at pick 6. They're finally up. They kind of wait until like the race is almost about to start, but we've got them here. We've got Hamlin, Larson, Truex all at 5.5 on their prop. Elliott at 6.5, but he's just a finisher. He's not a dominator. Reddick starting second at 6.5. Kind of interesting. Keselowski makes sense. Bell starting third. Not looking very optimistic for him, but I mean, don't count out Bell because the second you do, we get a Charlotte all over again. Logano for AM Racing, Chastain for DGM Racing. I kind of love that glitch that Draftkings always has go on there. That all makes sense. They actually have Chastain going backwards, even though he's fastest in practice. Kyle Busch 10.5. I guess you slammed the worst on that, right? It's the way he's going. Laps led. They only have 2, of course. Hamlin and Larson 37 and 30.5, and we'll go into the historical trends in a second here and see how that shapes up, but it seems about standard. Fastest laps, around 20 each. They are going to be a little bit more spread here than usual, and that's fine and dandy. Boom. On to what we need here. DK average by start here. So these are the haves, these are the have-nots. Remember that going into this. You just don't want to really be playing the have-nots. Usually it's very strictly based on starting position because qualifying matters a ton here. But without qualifying, when you've got guys like Truex starting back in 24th when he's arguably the fastest on the track, I mean, it's going to be a little wonky compared to years before. But nonetheless, this is typically how it goes. Of course, the top 5 doesn't have as big of an advantage as they usually would at an intermediate track. Only 200 laps of lead laps and fast laps to go around. The pole sitter here averaging 58 lead laps and 21 fast laps. So the props are significantly under for Hamlin off the lead. And it's worth noting that Hamlin didn't run in that first little stint of practice. And then after 5 laps of practice, we can see here, he called in. He's like, "No, we need an adjustment here. We can't even make a long run." And they took an adjustment. And they said it wasn't turning correctly in the mid corner. How much of that is Hamlin keeping his cards to his chest, like he does a lot of times? That's valid, absolutely valid. You've got Bell also slow. You got a lot of like slower Toyotas outside of course, Martin Truex Jr. But Toyotas are still favored to win here. So you can see, I wouldn't go crazy off of this practice data, honestly. Like, of course, Chastain looked a little good. But then you look at like Suarez, he looked no good at all. We see something similar with front row. See, like McDowell, he looks perfectly fine. Gilliland, the worst best lap of anyone in the entire field, even though Gilliland's been the one with all the speed at front row recently, but only 5 laps. Like, a lot of these guys have single-digit laps. I would look at this maybe like a third as much as I usually would for a race like this. And honestly, when we first started going to these bigger ovals, you can see here, like when we went up to Pocono, without Auto Club, which is usually like the second or third race of the year, that's usually all we got to go off of when it comes to these large flat ovals. But we've been to Pocono recently, and we just went to Indianapolis. So this would be in this package, at least the third straight 2 or more mile track that we have that we've gone to here. So it's nice that they kind of go to them like in a row. So looking at these like large and flat tracks, of course, going back to the next gen, it's been Truex, been Hamlin, and you can see with the track history, makes sense. Always in the top 5. You got Truex, always in the top 5. Kind of the way it goes. It just Ford just kind of always ends up up front here somehow. Again, a lot of the times through Harvick. Let me. I was looking at. Don't mind the Austin Dillon here. Very annoying, but yeah. If you look, let me just look at the winners here. Yeah. So I mean, these Fords, like you had Busher get past Truex at the end last year. Of course, Harvick. No more Harvick. Barry is not going to do what Harvick did in that car. But like Blaney, that makes a little sense. This race is probably the most similar to a super speedway race outside of the actual super speedway races. A little drafting going on here. It makes sense. Logano, he's pretty good at the horsepower tracks. And then you go back like Clint Boyer. So I mean, this Ford angle is not like the strongest, you know. But yeah, let's get into this field here, and I think I'm gonna take some liberties on breaking this down for you guys. I know it's probably still a little small to see, especially if you're still on like an iPhone -3 like I am. But bear with me here. Try to make it a little bit bigger while also still being able to show the lead laps, fast laps, all this important data here. Gonna try to drag guys around a little bit. So of course, here are your starting positions. This is what matters here. Now, this usually would be set off of speed, and it would matter a lot. And your starting position is going to correlate with your finishing position, but with no qualifying this week, it means that this was heavily influenced off of last week at Richmond, which of course, completely different package. Doesn't really matter for this week. Takes guys like Mr. Evil here, puts them up in the top 10. Then you have Truex at a DNF last week, has them starting all the way back in 24th. Going to be major chalk, of course. One of the fastest cars on the track. And one of the fastest cars here typically had the fastest car here last year. So that's going to shake things up. And then there's also this value range right here in the middle. And also on top of that, just all of these cars here in the have range. Honestly, in this next gen car, somewhat similar upsides. Like any of these guys could really do well. We've now had 2 complete fluke finishes, 3 if you count Chicago Street. So I wouldn't rule anyone out here, even though I will provide some fades, obviously, as there are some guys I'm not going to be playing because you can't just play everyone. That's stupid. But yeah, you just got to trust where you're going with here. And then you've got Larson and Hamlin, of course, who've been the top 2 at intermediate tracks all season long. Hamlin hasn't got the win, of course, but he's always run up front, always qualifying up front. Their value is going to be a little bit lower than an average intermediate track, which has 267 laps, only 200 laps here at Michigan. And you saw like the pole sitters, the front row guys, not as many average lead laps as a typical track of this size. Here, let's go to Michigan. Yeah. Average pole sitter, lead laps and fast laps, still a lot better than the other big tracks. Of course, these are a lot of like street and road courses. So it's going to be more laps, of course, and more pole or more decent numbers going to the pole guys here. The top 10 guys, again, just like mid for a slate. So paying 10-7 when there aren't as many laps to go around, 10-5, it's not as appealing. You like 10-3 for Blaney, But at the same time, with pricing this week, with all this value here and some value down here even, it's going to be really easy to afford guys like Larson and Hamlin. I theorize that their ownership is going to be the difference maker here. Larson and Hamlin, I think, are going to come in at double the ownership of all the other guys in this tier. And while they are a bit better than all the guys in this tier, I don't think they're twice as good. That's going to be the main leverage point on this slate for me. So yeah, let's get down to this breakdown of cars here. I'm going to try to move guys around here and kind of get some tiers going, but we kind of already know that Larson and Hamlin are up top here. So you've got Hamlin starting on the pole again. Pole sitters averaging 58 lead laps, 21 fast laps here, but you can see his props are a lot more, a lot on the lower side. Maybe they're looking at these practice times. We don't really know if he nailed the adjustment that he needed because his car was not running well for him. But again, he's got like, the best team in NASCAR pretty much. So I trust that they'll be able to make a pretty decent adjustment here. And yeah, just they have the direct path to some lead laps up front. Makes a lot of sense for them. They've gotten way more fast laps than Larson at this track in the next gen, at least. But long term, of course, Larson used to be fucking amazing here in Chip Ganassi racing and missed a few races in 2020 due to reasons. Yeah, Larson and Hamlin, these guys are going to be the chalkier guys, and I'm not as big of a fan of these guys this week. I think I'm going to try to be under on both of them and play a little bit more place differential. Hope that the rain that's coming in the forecast, which actually, let me pull it up here real fast. Don't expose myself here. Yep. All right. Yeah, so it's like Mother Nature knows when NASCAR's coming, because it's like right in race time. Might be a little delayed, but we should be fine for like the end of this race, whatever. Just thought it was funny that the Cup Series just so happened to pull in the rain yesterday in practice, and then the rain today during the race, and of course yesterday during the Xfinity race. Other than that, no rain in the area. It's not raining here, about an hour and a half south of the track, but anyway, so you got Larson and Hamlin. Going to try to be underweight on these guys, but they are like your pretty obvious stage one early Dominator options. You've got Ryan Blaney, who's been priced up because honestly at Pocono and Indy, really good runs, even though his average running position is like, I have him kind of sorted out here, like 7th for each track. That's pretty good compared to most guys. Like he's done really well at the large flats so far. It's a big price for him. And the odds, like, he started out right there with Larson and Hamlin, but of course him starting back in 8th and not looking as good as like a Larson in practice or whatever, and not being on the pole like Hamlin has his odds a bit lower. He's lower than Truex, who's starting back in 24th. So, probably overpriced on this slate, but, he has won here back in 2021. Pretty good at the large ovals, especially drafting type shit. He's the best super speedway racer. Doesn't necessarily fully translate over to this track, but still, Blaney's going to be like a solid option, but definitely in that second tier of drivers. And we're kind of looking at that second tier of driver a bit. He's just a little expensive, but of course you can get to him today for reasons that we'll address as we go down this field. Truex, of course, qualified back in 24th, yet jumped from 11th to 7th just off of this pretty damn good practice speed that we see here. As for finishing races at intermediate tracks, it's been a fucking catastrophe for him. But at this track, extremely good track history, even though he's the win escapes him. As long as he gets up to like 2nd to 5th, like he usually does here, starting 24th with only 200 laps to go around, that's fine. His floor is amazing. He is really, really good chalk here. But boy, is he going to be chalky. He's going to be incredibly chalky. So I don't know if you can get a whole lot off of playing Truex. I'm probably just going to try to match the field. But I'll still be playing a lot of him just because there aren't any actual good reasons to fade him. He's starting 24th. Again, not off of speed, just off of last week. And that creates a lot of inherent value here because he's going to have one of the fastest and safest cars to get towards the front here. Wish there was more of a reason to fade Truex. I know a few of you guys are. If you're inclined to do that, hell yeah. I just don't like fading the super chalk without like a reason. If it's good chalk, I tend to kind of stay on it. It's just the way I play. But if you're more aggressive, obviously, you're going to see it's 59% ownership and go, oh, no, screw that. Christopher Bell and Tyler Reddick kind of in the same boat here. So these guys are the Toyotas starting right behind Hamlin. they have real shots to take the lead early. Um, I've been a really big Christopher Bell guy over the last few months. As you can see, he's just been kind of awesome, even in these races like Chicago Street, Nashville. He was in the mix and competing and doing really well until he got taken out of those. Like he was really good at Chicago Street. The 37th is kind of a joke. But Pocono, which is probably the most similar track to this one that we'll be looking at, he was not very good. Average running position of a Pocono 10th. So he's run a little bit better than where he ultimately ended up finishing, but was not one of the faster guys. He's been tearing up the short tracks like big time. Just last week at Richmond, again, dominated, even though he didn't end up having the best finish. But he's been a really hot hand guy, but his ownership has not been very strong at intermediate tracks because people think just to play him at the short tracks. He did get that win at Charlotte with the rain involved there and snuck up to 4th at Indy, although he wasn't really that fast of a car. With Bell and Reddick, you've just got poor track history to look at. Now, if you look at Bell, last year he actually managed to lead laps and get some fast laps in this 13th place run, I think it was the 22nd place run. I can actually look at this real fast. Let's get off of the winners here. We'll sort it by race. We'll just look at Mr. Bell. Yeah. Whoops. There you go. Only Bell. Okay, fine. On the fly a little bit here. Yeah, so it was 2022. Actually got a lot of lead and fast laps there. Just got taken out, but he's qualified in the front row both in the next gen races. So he ends up 3rd, which is like his worst starting position yet, and it's just kind of by random chance. So also struggled in practice, sort of similar to Hamlin. But again, JGR team. JGR is the favorite to win this overall, even with Truex starting way back there. So Bell, one of the main guys I'm thinking about when I'm leveraging this ownership, 20% versus 40%. And I could see Bell even being maybe under 20% if we get lucky. It really depends on what the field does with Reddick, and we'll get to him. But him starting right behind Hamlin there, he's been really good this season. I'm not sure why. I just don't see myself playing twice as much Hamlin as Bell just in this situation, especially with Hamlin being very content to not lead early, as Bell seems to really want the lead early, which is good for fantasy points, definitely. And then you've got Tyler Reddick, who's been on a tear at these intermediate tracks, really, really good, runner-up at Indy. It's had the best average finish overall. Looking really good, just doesn't have the win, but he won last year at Kansas. Like, he's capable. It's just this track history is horrid. And we can take a direct look at that. And it's not been as bad as it seems, of course. But, just DNFing of the last 3. His average running position is outside of the top 10. It's not good. It's not been great at all. So this is a track that Reddick has struggled at, which is kind of a little bit weird because you do run the outside here, but just not the type of track type that Reddick has been the best at. But in this package this season, and even last, like, Reddick has shown a lot of upside here. So his odds are a little bit better than Bell. He opened up closer to Blaney, Hamlin, Larson. I'm just not sure what terrible track history like this will do to ownership. Like last week, I think it was more important to fade the guys with the really bad track history like Blaney, and you saw people still end up playing Blaney. So I think track history factors into ownership definitely less than it used to in NASCAR DFS, but I think Reddick is due. And I hate saying the word due, but like he's absolutely not going to continue this trend. I would not be shocked to see him just kind of come out of nowhere and have like a really, really good run here because he's been awesome in this package. And him and Bell, I'm probably taking Bell a little bit more just because I've been enjoying playing a lot of Bell. I like rooting for Bell, but Reddick will also be in consideration to get a good amount of play for me, just because I think he's not 50% as good as Larson or Hamlin, and that's just how the ownership's looking today. The other Hendrick cars, though, I am kind of like okay with fading these guys. Elliott is just a finish merchant, you'll see here Chase Elliott, like he is not DNF'd all year. He just kind of rolls with it. He got the win at Texas because the fastest cars at Texas all crashed. So he can win as long as the fastest cars all crash, but he's really not a threat to win. Maybe he could lead some laps here. He hasn't at all. In the next gen car, neither Elliott nor Byron has led a single lap or gotten a fast lap in this car. So that makes me not want to play them much at all, but they did look pretty sporty in practice, just like Larson. And Chastain here, who, Trackhouse very closely related to Hendrick here, but Byron especially, you can tell that Byron is on his, I'll call it summer break of him just not being that great after, of course, starting super hot in the early season. We kind of see this yearly from him. And Chase Elliott also the same way. Chase very streaky. So once he starts heating up, once he gets closer to the playoffs, I will start playing these guys a little more. Byron, you can see, like Elliott, his odds went up. Byron's odds actually went down, even though he was like really good in practice. So curious to see that. But yeah, not playing these guys a whole lot here. Keselowski, I'll play a good amount of. Starting 15th, he's got the nice upside, race winning combination with the place differential starting back in 15th. This is a whole range here of good place differential play, and with only 200 laps to go around, like these place differential plays are solid. You don't have to be starting in the 20s, 30s to be place differential. These guys are all kind of in the same ballpark where they're starting, and these guys just starting back in the teens represent some good value because we've seen, as long as you're starting in the top 25, really, you tend to score pretty similarly. So I enjoy me some Brad Keselowski here has been a constant factor at these intermediate tracks. Not so much the larger ones, but he has done well here. Historically, fourth here in this car last year. Of course, his teammate Chris Buescher won this race last year, led a bunch of laps as well. No problem with Keselowski here. Joey Logano, $8,800. This is the one I'm the least enthusiastic with out of this group. Of course, I had him as my winner pick last week. Of course, I don't want to go through the sob story all over again, but nonetheless, of course, we saw him get takeout of Indy, but 3 straight top 5 finishes at the intermediate tracks. Even though this Nashville one was a bit of a joke. Nashville, he just had way more gas than everyone, was able to survive the 25 overtimes they had there. So I don't think he actually has winning upside unless that exact situation comes up again. But yeah, he's got the lowest upside out of this group, so it kind of reels you back in. The problem with Logano that I have is similar to Elliott and Byron, where we're just not seeing lead laps or fast laps come from him at all. It is only finishes with Logano, and that's not that great for DraftKings purposes. As usual, he's more useful over there on the FanDuel side. Yeah, Chris Buescher, the defending race winner again. Yeah, he was the defending race winner at Richmond as well. Kind of just got on a heater around this time of the season last year, but top 10 the practice speed starting back in 18th. He's had a bit of an underwhelming season at the intermediate tracks, but he was excruciatingly close to winning it at Kansas, about as close as you could be. Nashville, again, pointing at Nashville finishes is not the best move here. So yeah, again, a lot of finishes outside of the top 10 here. So him and Gibbs are like really good place differential plays, but they're also a bit risky. I just like the speed that I'm seeing from Buescher, and his odds are significantly better than Gibbs. And yeah, he's been inconsistent this year, but I mean, Gibbs is like the epitome of inconsistency. So like Buescher a bit better here, although he is priced up kind of a bit to where just because of him being the defending race winner. We saw it last week. He's got like a wide range of outcomes, so he's fine for GPP for me. Ty Gibbs, you can only really play him in GPP. Thought about him a lot for cash, but it is super risky. $8,400, nice cheap price. But again, he's not the price of the other JGR Toyotas for a reason. Wildly inconsistent. He's finished outside the top 20 the last three races, just getting involved in a ton of wrecks here. But 11th and 10th place finishes so far at this track. This does come down to raw horsepower a lot of the time, and the carnage levels are lower than other tracks, and that works kind of directly in his favor. So, yeah, I don't think he's going to get up there and take the lead by any means, but if he can just get up to the top 10, which he has shown that he is capable of doing that at 8-4, just one of many plays that could be decent here, but I see his ownership also kind of creeping up. It just kind of falls in place a lot of the times for people. So Busher and Gibbs, it's going to be hard to go over these guys because I do see their ownership being pretty decent, but I'm more enthusiastic about just paying for Keselowski, and you can definitely afford him here. Bubba Wallace has been on quite a tear, this intermediate track type. A lot of top fives last year. Pretty solid run here. Indy, of course, one of his absolute best tracks. So top five with some lead laps there. Was never really out of the question. And the big thing with him has been that he's got all these spam calls. So my phone knows they're spam now too. That's crazy. But yeah. What was I saying here? So Bubba, yeah, starting top five just because his finishes have been really solid and consistent lately. And another solid, consistent finish, like Logano style here, starting fifth. I don't think that's going to cut it here. Unfortunately, he would need to go out there and find the lead. And that is actually something that your boy has done here in the past, the last 2 years. So this is very interesting. He started on the pole back in 2022, led 22 laps, led 21 laps here last year, starting 11th. So he's in play here, I think, for sure. I think people don't really like playing him, especially with him, quote unquote, over qualifying here. But at 8-3 as like a fourth option, it works out really well. Just don't get baited into making a lineup that's like Hamlin, Wallace, Chastain, and like, I don't know, like a Logano or something. You're probably just going Truex realistically, but I wouldn't take too many guys from the top 10 because there aren't as many laps to go around as usual. So if you're playing a Bubba Wallace, you're probably just like pairing him with like a Hamlin and hoping that he does stuff at the end of the race. Like 2 Dominators is usually the way to go here. After that, just like get a bunch of place differential. And yeah, that's kind of how it's going to have to go. And then the same kind of applies for Chastain, but he does seem to have speed from this fractured practice session we do have. Again, a lot of rain in the forecast here. Things are changing. Obviously, his lines jumped up significantly with that practice speed. I wish I could have seen where he actually qualified, but yeah, kind of a practice darling here. But this season, you can tell it's been really rough for Trackhouse. Now, you could say they found speed over the break because they were fast at Richmond, but that is a totally different package. So I don't know if I buy that entirely. But yeah, at 8-1, fastest on the board. I mean, you got to kind of respect that a good amount here. So just off of the price, really, on both sides, Chastain rates out as a really good play. Again, this whole range is just kind of awesome. Really good plays up and down. And then we start to get into the shitty plays. Kyle Busch starting 13th. No, thank you. It's been just absolutely dreadful for him. And at this point, I think it's like mental. Like he showed some signs of life at Richmond, but like if 12th at Richmond is a good finish for you, I don't know what to tell you. It's been rough. The only signs of life we've seen him be at is Kansas, Dover, which was actually in this intermediate package, in Texas. So, not as dead in the water as he has been at the short tracks, but again, 8,000. This should be like he should be like 6,700 right now. Do you agree? Not sure, but you should at least be like 7K. 8K is kind of crazy. Like we have to accept that Kyle Busch is just not who he used to be at this point. Bowman starting back in 22nd, just a cash game play for me, and there are kind of no shortages of cash game plays on this slate. Yeah, he could creep up into the top 10. He has 4 top 10s at this track type this season. The third at Pocono is actually really good. So he's definitely playable. The price is right. There's just kind of a play overload in this range, and I do see a lot of people go into Bowman because he's kind of the last of the have group before he falls to the have-nots. But honestly, attacking this range overall and then taking like one with like a Larson Hamlin or really just like a Truex or I guess one of like Bell, Reddick, Hamlin, Larson to get early and then Truex and then just all of this range and maybe a value guy. It's kind of the way to go here. So Bowman's going to be an important play, being the last of like the halves and starting back in 22nd. Honestly, pretty decent play. I think Brady is huge on him. Suarez was fast last week, of course. Almost won. Drove up to the front, ended up being pretty realistic, but that was the Richmond short track. Here at this track type, yeah, he was top 10 at Indy. So maybe you could argue he's found some speed. He had some speed early on the season, but it's just this stretch of mediocrity from him and this awful practice time and him starting up in 12th when he didn't actually come in 12th. That caused me to pause a little bit with him, but I will play him just a little, just for the top 10 at Indy, top 10 here last year. And with his teammate Chastain, of course, being fastest on the board, maybe he just copy pastes his setup and does pretty good from there. But he's like Kyle Busch. We're starting 12th. Like, it's just an awkward spot if you don't have Dominator upside, and it's not like you really need the savings here. Josh Berry in Kevin Harvick's car. If it was Kevin Harvick in Kevin Harvick's car, this would be an awesome play starting 16th. But it's very obvious at this point that Josh Berry significantly better at the short and flat tracks than he is at these intermediate tracks, especially these bigger ones. So he's kind of with Suarez and Busch here. Not as bad of a play. Starts a little bit farther back, but not seeing much upside from him. Cindric, I hate to admit it, 5 straight top 20 finishes, 7th at Indy, like looking fine, starting back in 23rd. He is playable. My player hating only goes so far until they actually become a good play. If I think you're a shit play, I'm going to definitely dog on you, and you're going to clap back at me by winning, just like Austin Dillon did. But I can't deny, pretty solid play. Penske doesn't own this track anymore or anything, but still, for a have-not, he's not in a bad spot overall here. He's fine. Hocevar starting 11th because he's been really awesome lately. Pretty unplayable at this price just because he's starting 11th. Even if he has like the 15th to 20th place run, or even like a 15th place run like he usually does, or I think even if you like give him like a 10th, right, he's still just putting up an average score compared to the guys around him. And like one of these guys certainly is going to overfinish and outshine Hocevar here big time. Gragson and Jones, your last like really good place differential plays before you just punt all the way down to the bottom. And we'll get to that. But Gragson started in 25th, 4 top 10 finishes at intermediate tracks this season, kind of sandwiched in with like some DNFs here. This just screams GPP to me. It's been pretty good for him. We're not like seeing crazy speed or anything, but like these finishes have been freaking awesome. Top 10 at Indy. Nashville, you can throw this one out. It doesn't really matter, but like top 10 at Kansas was really good. Las Vegas to start the season, really solid. So you can play some Gragson. And then Eric Jones, who I love this week, going to play a fuck ton of him. He's one of my favorite drivers. You all know this, but I'm usually a big Eric Jones train rider. I've been riding the Jones train for a good long time now, and I've said over and over again, he's awesome at large ovals. And the practice times kind of went away. He missed a few weeks with the injury. Comes back pretty mediocre at some tracks he's not so great at, but here, top 10 finishes in this car in both of the next-gen races. I think, his best finish in this package so far this season is 14th. 14th, starting 28th, is pretty awesome. We'll get you 40-plus points, and that'll make you optimal alone. But he has top 10 upside. We saw it last year. Got a ton of top 10s at the intermediate tracks. And, whenever there's drafting involved, big track with a lot of speed, Eric Jones thrives in those situations, and you finally see it in practice. Like he's actually fast in practice. So definitely listen to the practice speeds with him. I love him. He's one of my absolute core plays. McDowell, kind of weird because he overqualified off the order. Terrible this track, really bad. Would not play him, but it's interesting that he was fast when he's the one leaving front row, and Gilliland, his teammate, was like dead last when he's been the one that's had speed. Probably just gonna they kind of tend to do this where they have wildly different practice setups and then they just kind of run with whatever the best one is. So I would assume Gilliland kind of has this McDowell speed here that we see. But yeah, I wouldn't play McDowell personally, starting way too high. Dead duck situation with him on the way out. Chase Briscoe at $6,400. We play him at short flat tracks. This is not a short flat track, therefore I will not be playing him. That rule has been pretty awesome since the switch to the next gen car. I'm going to keep rolling with it. Austin Dillon. He hasn't done anything notable recently. I don't know what this odds jump is about. No clue what that means. I'm going to assume that people are just kind of crazy here. I know his track history is like decent, but remember, he used to just finish 15th every race with like some top 10 upside. Hasn't really been the case recently. Yeah, like the top 10 was at Nashville, of course, with all those. Out of curiosity, what was his average running position at Nashville? It was 22nd, and he finishes 6th. That just shows how ridiculous Nashville was. And then Texas also, you had all the good cars wreck. He was able to get a top 10 off of that. Then I don't know what happened last week. Something happened with him last week. I don't know, but people are making a lot of hullabaloo about him. He just looks like a very easy fade to me, starting 10th. Like, what? Get that out of here. Stenhouse, this range here is interesting because there are some plays that look like good plays on paper, and they'll probably be pivots, but there's really one play that strikes out like a sore thumb, and I'm just going to jump to it right now because it matters a lot. Granted, Eric Jones is probably going to be your cheapest guy in a lot of lineups just because of how awesome the mid-range here is in this pack. But if you need to go down low, AJ Allmendinger this week announced, Colleague Racing announced AJ Allmendinger will be running full-time for Colleague once again next season after a year off in the Xfinity season due to sponsorship. He's going back full-time. So he's going to have support behind him. And this is just a track that Colleague is randomly pretty good at. You'll see not only Allmendinger, but Daniel Hemrick as well, his teammate, in the top 10 in practice speeds, like actually showing some practice speed. We know from Xfinity and from years past, remember that these are like good finishes compared to the equipment that he had at the time. And his reputation is really just a road course only guy. Not a bad track for him at all. But we know from Xfinity, he can be really, really good at this track. And Colleague tends to do better at these wide open horsepower style tracks. Now, of course, he immediately wrecked that Indy, whatever. But you can see he's kind of back to like racing for them. I feel like he's probably known for a minute now. But yeah, you're probably not going to see anyone else in the 16 all season like we did in the beginning of the season. And due to no fault of his own, not off of speed or anything, just due to this being the part-time car, he gets to start back in 35th next to Cody Ware. That's awesome. That's incredible. This is one hell of a place differential play. Nashville, whatever, right? But like last year at Homestead, top 5 finish, and this was real. Like, this is more of what we should expect from him. Some top 15 upside, but you don't even need top 15 upside. You just need like top like 20 upside, and you've got like almost 40 points from 5K. Like, you really just need to finish like 22nd or better or so. And Allmendinger can absolutely do that. That should be like the expectation here, honestly, that it at least gets to mid-pack. So this is the best play, and you'll probably leave salary on the table to play Allmendinger. That's just my opinion here, but I will go through the rest of this range for you guys. What's really bugging me out is that Gilliland didn't start a little farther back, but he's just been finishing so well that he rightfully has to start kind of towards the front here. Nice finish, better than 20th. in what is that? 6 of his last 7 races here. He's got the DNF at Pocono, but outside of that, he's not finished worse than 17th. But yeah, these practice times, 5 laps, whatever. He's probably just going to grab McDowell's setup and be fine. We've seen this kind of week in, week out with Front Row and how they approach practice. Never worried about Gilliland being slow in practice because it never ends up mattering. Now, this track is one that he has sucked at, so keep that in mind. And with him starting 20th, it really knocks him down to being like a mediocre play. And then Stenhouse, who looks a lot better on paper, and yeah, he did have a pretty good finish at Indianapolis, not as good as Gilliland, who was actually like really fast, and makes him kind of noteworthy here. But he kind of randomly had a decent finish at Indianapolis. But we saw last week that Stenhouse just kind of runs out of talent sometimes. So he's going to be higher owned than Gilliland, but I don't think Stenhouse is a better play than Gilliland. I think Gilliland is the better play here in this range, even though I haven't projected for the same. Then Justin Haley, starting back in 29th, another guy that's like, if it wasn't for Allmendinger, it would be a really, really good play on this slate. You can see consistently finishing in the top 25. What is that, like 8 straight finishes in the top 25, starting 29th. There's a bit of floor there. Yeah, you would need to get into like the top 15 upside from him, which we've seen him be capable of. Like he's a good driver, but just kind of overshadowed by some of the plays around him. Priest, just like Briscoe, we play him at short, flat tracks, so this is not a place where we play Priest. Allmendinger, obviously, core play there at 5'6", even though you'll probably almost never need to go to that range. And then, of course, with Allmendinger being such a good play, the rest of this range is pretty useless because, again, the have-not range, starting 26 or worse, very, very dangerous here. And, yeah, these guys, all ultra dangerous. John Hunter Nemechek in this car has been fucking awful, absolutely awful at this track type. Zane Smith starting 27th. Ignore the second from Nashville. Obviously, that's a joke, but he has had some like decent finishes this season. Honestly, not bad, but starting 27th, just doesn't really rate out well at all compared to Allmendinger. And then you've got Corey LaJoie, surprisingly playable. He's been wrecking a lot this season, but three straight top 20 finishes. And it's at these like similar large super speedway type tracks, 2 straight top 20s. At this track, like 31st to 20th kind of seems like what we'll get from him. And that will get you like 34, 35 points. So if you're not playing Allmendinger in this range, LaJoie might actually be the play. But he is now on the dead duck list. Just like McDowell and them. He's out. He's getting replaced by probably like Haley or something next year. I don't remember if there was an announcement for that officially or whatever, but this whole range here, 1,000 to 1, should be pretty useless. But if this race gets crazy, if the rain does some wild things, if somehow the field ends up being ridiculous, there's carnage, whatever, you don't have to factor in Harrison Burton. He's not going to matter. He's fucking awful. But Hemrick, kind of fast in practice. How the fuck does he have 5 top 20 finishes in this package this season? I don't fucking know. This is about what we should expect from him. He's been 1,000 to 1 every time this whole time, but I think he just kind of has gotten lucky with a lot of these. Like Nashville, whatever, 5 overtimes, cool. At least one of these races, if not 2 of them, just off of pit strategy and getting lucky. But yeah. Hemrick has earned a little bit of respect, and if you're mass multi-entering, probably outplay a little Hemrick just out of respect for his finishes and for how Colleague kind of has been running. And then Cody Ware, I don't know where the top 20 at Indianapolis came from with Cody Ware. Ridiculous. Even 26 at Pocono. It's not terrible. It's like plus 10 from him starting dead last. If you were making like 150 plus lineups or something, whatever, go crazy with some Cody Ware. But like Rick Ware is just not like the absolute bottom of the barrel like has been before, as we can see with Haley having some speed here. And really just the bottom of the pack. There's just a lot more parity than there was in like the last gen of car where like these guys were going to finish in the 30s, like no matter what. But if you're out here playing like a Cody Ware, um, you probably know what you're doing at that point. There's no way it's gonna accidentally give you a bunch of wear or something. You know what you're doing if you're fucking around with some Cody wear, which you absolutely don't need to on this value filled slate. But hey, maybe you want to play Larson, Hamlin, and Truex together or something. I don't know. The world's your oyster, but that's how I feel about this slate. Um, for the winner pick, Jesus, this one's a little tough. So I've been good with the winner picks. It's just they've been kind of getting fucked at the end. Like last week, all about Bell and Logano. Logano was like a lap, really a turn away from, of course, winning. He got fucked over. Bell dominated the race but didn't win. Whatever. For this race, again, everyone's kind of like samey for me. It's hard to pick someone that really sticks out. So don't like tail this or anything. I just feel inclined to put out a race winner each week. It's just kind of what I do. I gotta stay consistent here. And of course, I'm not gonna pick Larson or Hamlin. I never pick any of the favorites. That's just kind of cheap. And I would even throw Truex in this. I kind of really want to just say Truex will come from the rear and win, but even the odds makers are like, nah, he's got the same odds as Larson. Like, come on, that's not crazy. I think I'm gonna have to run it back with Christopher Bell. I think Bell, if, another rain type race like Charlotte, where he just kind of has the best car, and people are like, huh, didn't play him. I think it was like 13% at Indianapolis. So just going to be right in the hot hand with Bell. Of course, the plays I like the most are Jones and AJ Allmendinger. Um, but yeah, up top, I think I'll probably end up, I'll commit to making Bell a pretty heavy leverage play for me and hoping he steals the lead from Hamlin early because he's just a little more aggressive than Hamlin. I could see that happening. Maybe the Hamlin adjustments they made after these slow laps weren't the greatest. I could definitely see Bell factoring in, but Reddick also, I have a hunch that he's going to finish better than where he's been finishing. But hey, that's just me. So that does it for this race. Let me take a look at some just some problems here. What is Gibbs' problem? He is a very young individual who didn't get enough seasons in trucks and Xfinity in lower tier equipment. He just got kind of handed the best equipment in Xfinity for a season and won a championship. And they said, cool, and sent him directly to Cup. So yeah, he's just young, inexperienced. He'll figure it out. We kind of saw Eric Jones be like that early on with JGR and Suarez. Like there's going to be some growing pains, of course, but he'll probably be winning races by like next year, honestly. Yeah. Hamlin's elite, the comments he made don't bother me at all. Well, I mean, yeah, he didn't even like make too many comments. He was just kind of telling it how it is. And again, that's like the best team in the garage, damn near. So I honestly think he is just kind of holding his cards to his chest with how open everything is with SMT and whatnot. I really don't mind Hamlin's strategy. He kind of does that a lot. And yeah, Hemrick, Jesus, I don't know. Like, you got to pay a little bit of respect. I'm not unchecking him in mass multi-entry, but it still feels kind of wrong to be playing these 1,000-to-1 guys. And yeah, my thoughts on Bell. I just gave him winner pick. Don't tail it though. Don't tail. Even though his line's not terrible, don't tail. I had 3 tabs open. Let it be known. Okay, I had 3 tabs open and I closed them all. This is actually, this. No matter how good a chalk someone is and how low the caution prop is, anytime someone's like pushing 60% ownership in tournaments, you're going to want to be under, or yeah, for sure. Fade him all the way. I mean, you're just kind of preying on his downfall. And I don't know. It's fun to root for people, but sometimes rooting against people is really cool. Because the dopamine rush of your guy hitting the front or getting to the front and like starting to lead laps is cool, but it's like it could all go away at any time. When you're just fading the chalk like this, like and they just wreck and they're done, that's like That's a great feeling, honestly. So any Truex faders this week should be admired. I'm not going to be one of them. I'm a bit of a coward. I kind of have um I can't really do a whole lot of super aggressive strategies just because I'm obviously inclined to play week to week and stay very consistent with the bankroll and whatnot. Want to avoid Hale and Bell together. Yeah, I don't think you should really be playing more than two guys starting in the top 10. Just doesn't seem like that kind of race. I mean, in FanDuel, sure, you kind of want to do that to go. You ultimately do want the 1, 2, 3 finishing guys, and that could still score well on DraftKings as well. It's just there are so many good place differential plays here. Yeah, taking two guys starting in the top 3, unless they just so happen to split the Dominator points, and that could certainly happen. It could happen with Hamlin and Larson. It could happen with Hamlin and Reddick. It really could. I just wouldn't play like 3 of those guys starting up in the front with 200 laps to go around. That's not great. Chalk place differential in NASCAR, like chalk wide receiver in NFL. I would say chalk dominator in NASCAR is more like wide receiver in NFL because there's still a lot of like downside as where chalk place differential in NASCAR when it's something like this, like a Truex who's super consistent, finishing top 5 and starting way back, not even due to him being slow, just due to qualifying being rained out and him having a fast car. Like this is more like a chalk cheap running back that gets thrust into a starting position. Like there's a lot of floor, could still wreck out, right? But it's just similar to a chalk running back. Everyone's going to play them. They've got tons of opportunity. Their price is locked in. It's just I'd say more good chalk, honestly. Yeah. I will point out that recently Truex's pits kind of sucked. They fucked him last week for sure. Just a side note, I would like to point out that Hamlin, for the first time in a long while, actually has been pretty decent this season, or at least not horrible with the pit penalties. So good for him. It's just this year he's just been ran into by random people a lot, and that really sucks. So yeah, and yes, helmets absolutely up. If you want to join us, get a helmet of your own. DFSArmy.com, promo code TACO. Get in there. NFL starting soon. What are you waiting for? Should be doing more of this promo throughout the course of the pod. Honestly, I forgot this was a public one, so I kind of should have been doing that more. Oops. But yeah, pull up on DFSArmy.com, promo code TACO. Cover all the sports, even the niche ones like this one. And yeah, we've got a bunch of dedicated coaches giving you that daily content for all the sports at a pretty damn good price compared to the rest of the industry. So fuck yeah, come in here. You see all those helmets all over the place in NASCAR. It's super hard to avoid. It's been my sport since day one. And the only thing I'll tout is we have the best ownership projections in NASCAR. I will always say that. That is, I think it's like the most important thing too. But for the lower series especially, it's worth pulling up at least for that. Promo code TACO. There you go. Cool. How much Truex is too much Truex for 20 max? 101% because you would probably get your DraftKings account banned. Just locking Truex and saying, fuck it, I'll just take this free sort of expensive play, especially with salary not being that big of a deal. I don't think it's a horrible move. You will get a little bit of leverage, but of course, if anything happens to Truex, it's kind of whatever. But this is a low caution prop, low carnage kind of track whatsoever, and it's just such good chalk. I don't mind it. So I don't think there's any such thing as too much Truex for 20 max. Now, it's like 150 max or whatever. You're just mass multi-entering 200 plus. Yeah, I would probably cap him at like 67, 70, something like that. Maybe even 75, just because there is that like inherent 25 to 30% DNF / carnage / fuckery rate that every driver has, like every race. I don't really like pushing guys past that in mass multi-entering. I don't know. Dylan, I don't know. Did something happen with him? Oh, people keep talking about Dylan. I don't know what I don't know what they keep talking about. But yep, here everyone coming in through the front door. It's about an hour, so I'm out of here. Helmets up, and have fun in Michigan. See ya.